Businessworld. Today we are here at the Gurugram Chapter of the Indian Business Literature Festival, where business meets wisdom. And I'm joined by Mr. Prakash Iyer, who's the founder, CEO, Leadership Works, and he's going to talk to us about his book, How Come No One Told Me That? So Mr. Iyer, first of all, a very unique name for the book. What was the motivation and what went behind the name?
I first wrote the book and I had lots of lessons in it, and we were wondering what to call it. And I guess after every story, one of the lingering thoughts was, Arey, yaar, how come no one told me that? And I think we've all gone through that moment in our lives where we feel, oh, this was so simple, or this was so obvious, but damn, how come I didn't know about it? How come? And sometimes we wonder, we've learned a lot. We go to school and college, we've studied so many things, but yet we don't learn some of these simple things that can help us in our lives. And I think that's really how the title came into being.
So what was the motivation for you to explore something like this? What made you start writing this?
So I love stories and I love to tell stories, and I just feel that stories are powerful, and I can tell you this is how you should do it, or that's what you should do, but you may not necessarily listen to me. But if I gave you a story, there's a good chance that you would say, this is worth thinking about. Right. Maybe I need to do it differently. Right. So really, in my life, I think I've been lucky. I've had a chance to work with some wonderful people, learned a few lessons. And in some senses, I feel it's my turn to give back to younger people, help other people to get it right. And we've all seen this in our lives, that you see lots of people who are very smart, very intelligent, but they don't always necessarily get it right. They don't become as successful as they should be. They're not as happy as they should be. What's the missing piece? And I sometimes feel maybe they need to learn a few simple things that perhaps no one has told them. And they think that just being smart, being intelligent, being this super achiever, competing to win will help them to get it right. And maybe that's not how it works.
So I was going through the book and I picked a couple of things for which I think we can talk to for our viewers. Now first is, of course, and that's on the top priority for me, fear of missing out. People have a lot of this fear of missing out, or doing things just because somebody else is doing it. How do we tackle that, and can you share some of the anecdote that you have used to explain this?
Sure. Yeah, so if I can take a couple of minutes to share that story around how this whole thing happened. We have twin children, both grown up now, but I remember when they were little kids, we were in Dubai, and one of the things I had to do was to pick them up from school. So here we have, Abhishek and Shruti, they are the twins, and Shruti is like 3-4 minutes older. And as I pick them up and come into the car, Shruti suddenly looks at me and says, Dad, I want to sit on the right side of the car. Okay. Now, they both know as kids that they can't sit in front, and if this is left-hand drive now, so she wants to sit on the right, and I'm thinking, she's this girl who's, feels like she must see Dad to know that he's there. So sitting on the right means she can see me, so maybe it's one of those things. She says, I want to sit on the right. And the minute she says, I want to sit on the right, Abhishek says, Dad, I want to sit on the right. Okay. And now this becomes a bit of a fight. She says, but I said it first. And Abhishek says, no, I want to sit on the right. And he's, 3 minutes younger. So I just think, let's give it to him. Right. So I tell her that, you're the bigger sister, and let it go and let him sit on the right. So she agrees. And so we reach the car. And when we get to the car, Abhishek looks at me and says, Dad, which is the right side? So that's what happened. Right. And as I think about it, as a little story, it's about two kids. Right. But I still think there is a little Abhishek inside all of us. Absolutely. We all want the right-hand side of the car because somebody else wants the right side. Right. We don't know why we want it. We don't know what it entails. But because somebody else wants it, we think it's important, we think it's good, and we want it. Right. And I think this can be a problem for many of us. We want a career because other people want it. We want a seat in engineering college because everyone wants it. Right. That's not necessarily what's going to make us happy. I also feel that learning to give away something because somebody else wants it, and it may not mean too much to you, but we can all become much happier if we learn to give away stuff which means something to other people and is not of much use to us. And I think getting our minds around this can, I think, become a huge source of happiness And that's really how I thought about
That's
it.
really important given how we get influenced by seeing things in today's social media world. The other interesting thing that you've mentioned in the book is the need of an alteration tailor.
Yeah.
What is this? How can an alteration tailor help, in navigating day-to-day courses in our life or, challenges? Please explain this as well.
Yeah, so it actually came out of a little column in a business newspaper.
Okay.
Those weekend reads where it had something like 5 style tips to look your best. And having nothing else to read that day, I must have read that little column. But the stylist, this lady, had interesting things to say. Some of it was regular stuff, length of your sleeve, color of your tie, shoes, all of that. The 5th point in her list was get yourself an alteration tailor. I thought that was interesting. I mean, who has an alteration tailor now? And her point was, we all have these expensive clothes, we buy big labels, big names, brands, but they don't necessarily fit us too well. And if you have an alteration tailor, he can take one look and tell you that, maybe you should reduce the length of your trouser by half an inch. If you do that, it'll look a lot better. And then help you to make that change. And she also says how sometimes we don't wear something we've bought, so it's there with us. Take, for example, maybe it's a shirt you loved, but you don't wear anymore because it's become a little tight. But an alteration tailor will say, don't worry, I'll alter it and make it fit you. So again, you have a strength which is with you, which is the shirt, but you're not able to use it because you're not sure if it'll work for you. And the alteration tailor helps you to get it right. I thought it's a great idea to have an alteration tailor, but my take was we all need 2 alteration tailors. Yeah. One for our clothes, one for our life. We all need someone who will look at us and tell us what's that small change we need to make to get a little better.
That one source of motivation, somebody who can guide you. And the other thing, before I ask you about probably your next book, you talk about or emphasize more on doing the small things right. Sometimes let's say at workplaces, we often try to do things which are quite big and getting them right in one shot. But you emphasize that get the small things right. So, and this is a challenge, for people at workplace. They neglect sometimes small things and how in the long run they matter. So tell us about that, if any anecdotes from the book, if you can.
Yeah, so I think there are 2 parts to it. I think one is that I firmly believe that in our life there are no big problems. There are small problems that didn't get attended to. And therefore it's a good idea for all of us to say, how do I take care of it? How do I get the small things right? And an example of that would be that I used to have a problem here. I don't know if you've had this where we buy these expensive running shoes and very often, I had bought myself an expensive pair of Nike shoes, and when I went for a walk in the morning with my wife, that damn lace would come off. I don't know if it's happened to you. These are these very round nylon kind of laces. And I was telling myself, surely the Nike guys have to get this right. They sell such expensive shoes. Can't they do something about the lace? Right. And I wanted to write to the CEO of Nike and say, come on, do something about it. But, I did the second best thing. I Googled it. How to tie your shoelaces. And damn, I discovered that there are 2 ways of tying a knot, and there's a weak knot and a strong knot, and I was doing a weak knot, and therefore the lace was coming off. So here I was, 50-year-old, learning to tie my shoelaces. Yeah. But I learned that if you do it right, and it's only a matter of once you make a loop, whether you take it from above or take it from below makes a difference. So here it is. Making sure your laces stay in place is not Nike's problem. It's not that Nike needs to invest in new laces. It's just a matter of saying, just take it from below and your lace will stay in place. Yeah. So it's a big learning. Yeah.
So Mr. Iyer, definitely you're very passionate about telling all these stories, and the way life stories that you have compiled to make people understand that how come really no one told them that. But during the writing process, which was probably the part of that book when you wrote it, and among all of these things that you mentioned, that you were shocked that okay, how come I didn't really know this thing?
Yeah.
Which would be that thing?
Which would be on my
top priority when you would say that, oh, I really didn't know this. How come I didn't know this? Yeah. And during the process of writing.
Sure. Yeah. So I think it's a great question. I haven't really thought about it, but maybe a good way to answer that would be to say, of all these stories, which is perhaps the one that I learned last year. Okay. And I learned, this was really during COVID. I came across something called Hanlon's razor. And I was blown away when I read about it, because it suddenly opened my eyes to why we do things the way we do it. Right. And I'll explain to you quickly, what is Hanlon's razor? It's a mental model which basically says, never attribute to malice that which can be explained by negligence or stupidity. Never attribute to malice that which can be explained by stupidity. It's a very powerful idea. What happens to us is, if something goes wrong, we are very quick to attribute motives. Right. You know, if you go and buy bananas from a fruit seller, you pay for a dozen bananas, you come home and you discover there's only 11. And you say, damn, he's a cheat. In fact, you should be very careful. In fact, that entire market is full of cheats. In fact, not just the market, that community of traders, should be very careful. Right. They're all cheats. Right. Chances are that poor fellow made a mistake, and he's feeling bad. Absolutely. But I think we make this mistake all the time. When something goes wrong, someone does something to us, we are very quick to say, I know why she's doing it, or I know why he's doing it. He doesn't like me. And we attribute motives. It makes us unhappy. It makes us want to take revenge. We also start to become rude to the other person. We start to become tough with the other person. Why? Because we think that person has got malice. Right. I think just learning to keep your cool, even if someone does something silly, just tell yourself, right, it's stupidity. That person didn't do it on purpose. It's just that the person did it in stupidity or negligence.
Right. Very insightful, Mr. Iyer. So before we wrap this up, you want to give any sneak peek of your next book? Is there anything on cards?
Well, I think all I'll say is this. I love stories, as you might have figured. And I feel that if I have a message to convey to people, it's really around how can I use stories to get this world to discover new lessons. I also believe that there are lots of stories all around us. And you have a lot of stories to tell, and very often we don't realize it. Many of us think, oh, stories are these things that happen to other people. I have nothing interesting to say. But the truth is, we all have very interesting stories to share. Right. And hopefully, this journey will continue where I can try and share lessons, stories from other people's lives, maybe what we've learned from lessons around us, which can help all of us become better and happier.
So we at Businessworld really hope that journey continues. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's been such a pleasure being at IBLF, and I think Businessworld's done a great job to get this event going.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.